Recently, myself and fellow Futhead News writer and positioning warrior Dave got the opportunity to go to EA and have a look at FIFA 17's career mode. So we did. Some disclosure, I'm not as big a career mode guy as I used to be. Career mode used to be my bread and butter mode in FIFA, the mode I would spend most of my time in. I have fond memories of growing a young Fernando Torres to a 95 overall in FIFA 2005. Honestly, his growth was disgusting and I probably played it way too much, but in recent years I've transitioned to Ultimate Team because frankly, the CM changes have struggled to hold my interest beyond a few months. I don't think I'm alone there. Usually when we play career mode early, we share a console and a save, basically co-oping our way through on the same couch, sharing decisions, etc. But this time we had a console each. Now this isn't just waffle, I'm trying to paint you a picture, and once I explain one of the new features, you'll understand why it was important to be able to run two separate career mode saves alongside each other. The other thing to note is that we had about 6 hours on it, so this is all based on the first season of each save. Time basically didn't really allow us to get any further than that. Dave opted for a Manchester United save, which allowed us to see inside a super club. No, come on, don't laugh, they are. And I opted for a Malaga save because I wanted to stay in a glamorous league, but also wanted to see what it would be like to be in charge of a club that wasn't swimming in wealth. Okay, so housekeeping done, I'll return to why it was important to be able to run two saves. The biggest change for CM in FIFA 17 is Total Club Management, or TCM. So TCM is basically a set of objectives given to you at the start of a season. These objectives fall across 5 categories: domestic success, continental success, brand exposure, financial, and youth development. Within these categories are objectives to be met. So for domestic success, the board wanted me to guide Malaga to a high league finish. They didn't say how high, and reach the round of 32 in the cup, which was odd because that's the round I started in. They wanted me to qualify for Europe too. Each of those categories is assigned a weight or level of importance as seen by the board, either low, medium, high, or critical. So for example, in Dave's CM save as Manchester United, the board placed a critical importance on brand exposure. They wanted him to grow the Manchester United brand because that was incredibly important to them. In my Malaga save, the board saw that as medium. It wasn't as crucial to them that the Malaga brand was pushed further and shirts were sold. We started a Barcelona save to check out their objectives, and the board saw everything as critical apart from financials. They wanted success both domestically and in Europe. They wanted the Barcelona brand to grow. They placed huge importance on youth development, but money naturally just wasn't a concern to them. The brand exposure objectives are where things start to get interesting. I had 2 for my first season. The easier one was to sign a crucial player for the first team, specifically either an attacker or midfielder. Easily done, but interesting to have the board dictating it. Although I must point out it was an area in which I was a little bit light, so it all made sense. And the second objective was to sell out, to have at least 95% attendance 40% of my league games. So looking at it, that was all cool. It was a nice objective to be set and something we've not seen before, but falls down a little bit because the game doesn't offer any guidance on how to do that. You're not really told what feeds into attendances rising. Team performance is the obvious point, isn't it? Play well and the fans will turn up. No shit, but it feels like there needs to be more to it than that. In Dave's Manchester United save, he naturally had different objectives. He was tasked with growing the Man United brand in Asia specifically. Again, an awesome task to be set, but sadly you're kind of limited on how you can do that. The only 2 ways we actually figured out ourselves were to 1. Buy a player or players from that region to raise interest, and 2. To make use of a feature introduced in FIFA 16 and to participate in a pre-season tournament in that region. One small problem with that: whilst your objectives for the season are one of the first screens you'll see when you start career mode, you see them after you've chosen your pre-season tournament, if you choose one. So we found ourselves in a situation where we were asked to raise brand awareness, thought about how we could do it, and then realised that literally one screen earlier we'd passed up a golden opportunity to contribute to it because we simply weren't aware at the time. In the United save, we also had some objectives related to shirt sales and stuff like that, which moves us on to the financial objectives. Again, there's some cool bits in here. So clubs now have a worth, calculated from your expenses, which are based on player and scout wages, youth facilities, stadium maintenance, and even travel expenses, and your income based on transfers and loans, sponsorships, ticket prices and attendance, and media and merchandising. And one of my objectives was to double that club worth across 2 seasons. So objectives aren't necessarily one season things, they can run across multiple seasons. At United, Dave was asked to sign 2 marquee players in 2 seasons. Do it in one if you can or want to, but it gives you more time if you need it. There are some new financial tiles in the menu to show you how much money is coming into and going out of your club. If you check them regularly, you'll see frequent updates, so you'll see how much money is coming in from shirt sales, and you'll also see which players are driving those sales. You'll see how much stadium maintenance is costing you, although you can't directly affect it. Even how much you're spending on travel. My away trip to Barcelona sent me back just over 50k. No idea if that's reasonable or not. And you'll also see season ticket sales, what salaries are costing you, and most of this stuff will be summarised by week and also overall by the current season. It's all lovely to see, but what's missing is a solid knowledge of how to actually affect those numbers. You can make educated guesses, nearly all of which lead back to play well and your attendance will go up, and so will shirt sales and so on. But it feels a little lifeless and is certainly missing a bit more interaction. Youth development is the final area you'll be set objectives, and again they will vary. One of mine was to grow a youth player from my academy by 5 overall across the season and play them in 5 matches, encouraging both training and use of youth players. Lovely. And the second was to make a profit of just under 2 million from youth players, putting a business spin on the whole thing and making you want to develop them as much as possible to maximise their value. Manchester United's youth expectations were a little bit higher. They wanted 2 youth players to participate in 5 league games and grow by 10 overall, but they weren't pressing for those players to be sold on. When viewing your objectives, you'll see the completion percentage, as in how much of it you've done so far, and all this stuff ties together under what's called the manager popularity rating, which seems to be an amalgamation of your popularity with both the board and the fans. Your rating is shown at all times in the top left, and a nice little touch is a flag that highlights when it changes, which means when you do something that affects your rating just by playing as you normally would, you're notified that that action has changed your rating in some way, whether that be positively or negatively. I found it a bit wild, to be honest, and it wasn't clear what the thresholds were. Mine hovered mostly in the 80s, I assume out of 99, but occasionally dipped as low as the mid-60s. Whilst it's nice to know when your rating is affected, sometimes it leaves you scratching your head a bit. I received a bid for my first choice left back and had no plans to change him, so I just flat out rejected it, which caused my rating to go down. Did the board want him gone? Did the fans want him gone? I've no idea. What's missing is just a touch more visibility as to why it changed. Even an email would do. Sadly, that's the case with most of the objectives. It needs to be a bit clearer as to why your actions have actually affected something. The other thing that isn't clear is the rewards or penalties for achieving or failing your objectives, and the board are now quite aggressive, to be honest. By the end of the first season at Man United, despite having won the league, had a good cup run, signed 2 marquee players, sold tons and tons of shirts and made loads of money, meeting all of the financial, domestic, continental and brand objectives, the board were more worried about the lack of youth development, going as far as suggesting that we were only just holding on to our job. They really went to town on us despite having had an absolutely incredible season, so that definitely needs some work. We also found that hitting the financial and brand objectives were pretty easy with a bigger club. It's slightly understandable, but maybe they just need to be a bit harder. Overall though, there's some good variety to the objectives and they're an interesting addition for sure. The fact that some span across multiple seasons is great, but I felt a little disengaged with them at times because occasionally understanding why something's gone up isn't really clear, as I say. If they can tighten all this stuff up and make it a little bit deeper than it currently is, we're looking at a really, really positive addition. From the first FIFA 17 reveal, we learned that all of the Premier League managers were licensed and in the game, and naturally one of the places you'll see the most of them is in career mode, assuming you're playing in the Premier League, obviously. If not, then there are also 11 generic manager models in the game, one of which you will choose as your avatar when you start a new career mode. As you set up your name and stuff like that, you'll also choose one of the models and dress them up in the CM standard of either a tracksuit, shirt and tie or full suit, although you can't edit their facial appearance, and from then on you'll see them on the touchline as well as in cutscenes after near misses and goals and stuff. Those 11 generic managers will be dotted across the leagues that don't have licensed managers, i.e. any that aren't the Premier League, so you won't just see your manager. However, we did have one match where Dave's generic manager shook hands with another manager who happened to be his twin. I'm sad to report that one of the bigger new additions for FIFA 16, player training, hasn't actually really seen any further development, and if it has, it's all under the hood and tucked away. Although across that single season we didn't notice any dramatic change in the way player growth is affected by training. 1 or 2 of the drills have changed a bit, the names haven't, so there's still a sliding tackle drill and a pass mastery drill, but behind some of them the skill game may have been updated. Sad to see that not really developed on further. In the foreground, transfers haven't seen any love, certainly in the way you seek out and purchase players. From negotiation to the global transfer network, it's all completely familiar. Same for transfer deadline day, sadly, and January's still pretty quiet. I guess we're at a point where nearly everything you want is in there, and in terms of player moves, it would be hard to point at anything different, but we saw a few odd bids maybe. Dortmund came in for Smalling with a hefty 38 million, and in my Malaga save I saw Ronaldo move to Arsenal for 61 million and Pogba to City for 71 million. So make of that what you will. I think the real disappointment was seeing Dave mirror the real world, maybe, by himself bringing Pogba to Manchester United for 70 million, which is a lot of money, so you'd like to see more fuss be made of such a transfer. When making a purchase of that stature, the game should scream about it, and it doesn't. That's where career mode still misses some simple advances for me. There's little fanfare around big transfers. You still can't respond to player conversations beyond the incredibly black and white option of play them or don't, or offer them more money or don't. Press conferences are still the same and hide their effects away, so if the Journey trailer got you excited that we might see something like this in career mode, no. Sorry to disappoint you. On that note, it's a shame that EA weren't able to bring more from the Journey into career mode. Some of the features we've seen in the Journey would feel right at home here. I know it's obviously simpler for EA to test the waters with that stuff with something scripted, so hopefully that's what's happening and we'll start to see some of these conversation trees and cutscenes and stuff bleed over into CM in the future. Don't hold your breath though. Really, career mode in FIFA 17 is another year of building on what's already there, as was FIFA 16. And whilst that's fine for the overall package of career mode, it leaves the actual new feature list feeling a touch light. And sadly, there are just too many familiar screens knocking about that haven't seen a proper lick of paint. The sim setup is the same as it has been for years. The squad report still has a look about it that predates the last proper career mode refresh. Each screen of this ilk offering a reminder that the step on from last year hasn't been a particularly huge one. It's getting there. Each year new features are added that thicken things up, and this year's new features build upon last year's training and pre-season tournaments, but I think CM fans would appreciate a genuine overhaul that left all traces of career modes past behind, and this is not that year. The new additions are genuinely very enjoyable, but still need some work to get the best of them, I think. Certainly in regards to actually engaging you in the objectives you're being asked to complete. At times you can just play CM like you normally would, and they tick themselves off as you go along. Certainly the case with bigger clubs. I love the stuff around brand engagement, etc. It seems to be a great shift towards the kind of thing modern clubs actually have to think about, right? They worry about creating a fan base outside of the city they call home, but as good as it is, it still needs a bit of attention. Even just using the email system more to feed back on your progress would be great, but the most we got was the odd message from the board if you weren't on track, and that's pretty much all it said. You're not on track, pull your finger out. So that's career mode for FIFA 17. There's also been the addition of the Japanese League, obviously, giving you somewhere else to start, but unfortunately it's just not a huge leap beyond last year. We're not yet at the stage where EA are taking career mode out the back to shoot it in the head, but it's feeling a little bit unloved this year. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to subscribe for more like this on the run up to FIFA 17 and beyond. Bye.